happy Tuesday. I'm so happy to be on with you all for another Sips and SalonScale. My name is Lynzie Smith. I am head of community engagement with SalonScale. I've seen a few of you on in weeks prior, so welcome back. I live in Metro Detroit. It is 70 and sunny. It's like our third day of sunshine. So today on my sip, I've got a passion tea iced, my first like iced tea in the morning for the year. So I would love to hear in the chat what you're sipping on, where you're joining us from, and also the name of your salon. If you wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat. I'd love for these to be interactive as we keep facilitating week after week. For anyone who's new here to Sips and SalonScale for the very first time, this space is what we host for our active users every week. So this is an education space for us to talk through relevant topics related to what our active users are going through within their business. So today's topic is a fun one. Today we're talking about salon math myths. So I loved this idea because I know some of you maybe have seen the like girl math trend that's been really popular on social media. And so we thought we would spin that and do it in a way that kind of really relates to what our community experiences in their salons. So before I get started, as we're kind of going through, like I said, I'd love for this to be interactive. If you could drop in the chat, I see some of your chats now. Good morning, Philadelphia, Memphis. Oh, Florida, I bet it's sunny and beautiful there as well. So as we're going through, I'd like to first ask you if you can kind of think about any salon math myths that you have either been told or possibly even believed or practiced within your business yourself. So if you can drop a myth or two that you've maybe heard, thought through, as you're continuing to hear me go through some of the things that we brainstormed and what we thought would be really fun for today, it might kind of help you kind of think through what are the things in your team or within your business yourself. If you are a solo artist, what are the things around math or finances that can feel a little like myths or confusing? Yesterday was tax day for us here in the US. So a lot of us have been focused on accounting, focused on all of that numerical value within our business. So the first myth that I wanted to introduce, this is cool. Yes, thank you, Diana. Welcome, welcome. The first myth I wanted to introduce is a really important one because I think it's something that we see a lot in the industry. So for many artists, whether they're suite renters, they're just starting out, newly licensed, or salon owners who are first-time owners stepping into that responsibility, pricing itself comes with a lot of salon math myths. So one of the very popular myth number one, I would say, in this
from SalonScale, they have
there, Misty. If you're not muted when you join in, if you could just mute your mic, that would be so helpful for me. One of the big myths is the idea of Google searching your neighbors, the people that are located near you, and then basing your pricing off of what you see geographically. So why is this a myth? First question I'd have, if you have heard this before or practiced this, could you just drop a Y in the chat for me? So if this is something you've seen, practiced, experienced, that would be so interesting to me to see kind of where you all lie on these myths, if they feel more true to you, less true to you. So this one is a big one because, yep, it's absolute lie. Definitely not something we would encourage here at SalonScale, or me myself, Lynzie, as a hairstylist. I would definitely not coach any of my coaching clients on basing pricing this way. So let's break that down a little bit. Why is this not best practice? So when you're searching and you're looking at your neighbors in your local area, sometimes the idea is to sort of get a consensus of maybe a niche service that you offer. Let's use extensions, for example. So extensions can be such a wide range of pricing, methods, quality of hair. There's so much that goes into that. So if we did a search and looked at 10 salons near us and got some sort of idea based on their pricing on their website, what's listed publicly, where they start their base pricing for extensions, and then we take that and create our model based on just that alone. What we're not taking into consideration are two really important factors. For anyone who joined us with Kaylee Auger, she was with us back in February. We talked specifically about the difference between parts plus service and how to really start breaking up costs that way and understanding the numbers behind pricing models, but then also the important one of supply and demand. So that supply and demand piece is one of the most important things to first consider when you're looking at pricing. When you are in a new area or establishing yourself as a new business in that area, it's really important to kind of take a look at first, what does your demand look like? Who is already interested in the service that you're offering? So when you've got that demand to the point where it's consistent, it feels comfortable, that demand can then start to increase your price based on your availability. So this is something most seasoned artists are very aware of. As your books become more full, there's less availability for new clients. It's time for a price increase. And that's how you can kind of start to measure where your scalability lives. So with that supply and demand factor is such a crucial one, because if you price yourself based on your neighbors, if you're looking just solely at who is at what price point around you, and then you're putting that price point on your menu and listing that as your offering, if you don't have the demand, you've overpriced yourself. So then right there, you have a slight issue, because if you're matching or close to the price points that all of your neighbors are at, but yet you don't have the demand and they do, they'll continue to have the new bookings and you'll struggle to find those new clients. And so that piece alone can be a really big hindrance when it comes to pricing. The second factor, that supply and demand piece, is that when you get to the point of really looking at your data, your numbers, understanding where all of those metrics fall within your business, then you can actually focus more so on the profit that you're taking home. So that profit piece itself is more important in the long run than just the pricing that you're setting as that structure. So if you're looking at, again, your neighbors, you have no idea what their overhead is. You have no idea what their business pricing within their services, what that looks like, their percentages. So by just looking at their information and then copying and pasting it for your own menu, you're really missing the data around your own business that can help steer you in the right direction. And you may even be underpricing yourself if you are able to really showcase your expertise, your experience, and the way that you really take care of and nurture your client. So that is our first salon math myth. I'd love to kind of see, I saw one person. So if you could just, two of you are live with me on camera, nod your heads if that sort of resonates with some of the things you've seen in the industry. Yes, with our newer artists or newer salon owners stepping into that role, that salon math myth is a big one, because it really kind of devalues all of us as an industry. We don't want to set pricing that way. We want to take our data and we want to go by numbers and move that into setting those prices. So the second salon math myth, this is a fun one for colorists, obviously relevant to all of us here. The myth is that by having a back bar with, let's say, a 3N and a 7N, you can easily then go ahead and make yourself a little 5N. And so that salon math myth is another really important one as colorists, because what we don't want to get into the habit with our inventory is coming up with these really interesting formulations just to make something that we don't have in stock. The reason for that, there are a couple of specific reasons, but the biggest reason, can you get to a level 5 or a level 6 or a level, of course, there's ways that you can really adjust and create that formulation in the ways that make sense for your client. And if you're doing that with a specific formulation in mind, great. If there's a reason for that, great. We want to know the rules before we break the rules. But the reason that is not what any color brand would ever suggest you do is because the tonality really changes in those different levels. The tonality we want to get to at those 5 VRs or maybe in the gold categories, they're formulated with the tonality based on that level of color. So if you're mixing a 3 and a 7, you have 2 different tones and you're not necessarily going to get to the exact tonality that you want to find in that level 5. This is really, again, like I said, important when it comes to reds and golds. So those formulations live in different areas and we want to bring that tonality in. When color manufacturers create different levels, they're including that tonality based specifically to that level in the color level category. So that salon math myth is a really common one. And so for me as a colorist, have I mixed different colors to come up with things? Of course. Have I not had color on stock and I needed to come up with a different formulation to be able to make what I needed for my result? Of course. Who doesn't do that? However, that is a salon math myth. We don't want to be in the practice of always coming up with these really interesting different formulas. There's a few reasons for this. So like I mentioned, the tonality factor is the big one for the results for the client, the color factor. The second one is when you're doing that, when you're creating that process of a little of this and a little of that, If you're not properly really tracking your inventory, and this is again for somebody who's doing this on a regular basis, this is not for that one-off situation where you have to do something in a pinch. This is for the colorist who's constantly kind of scrambling to create these formulations. The big thing that is a concern for our client, especially if we're not really measuring and keeping that data, is being able to recreate that formulation time after time. There's a lot of human error in that process of a little of this and a little of that. So that salon math myth is another big one for younger stylists, for younger artists that are really kind of stepping into the salon suite or the owner role for the first time. Now, as we continue to grow our skill set, this is also where we really want to encourage our younger artists to start to figure out how to better stock their inventory and understand what they need for their schedule so that that doesn't have to happen. They've got exactly what they need on hand and they never have to scramble to come up with something else that's maybe not there. So that salon math myth is one that we see a lot within setting up inventory for our artists. So as we're kind of working with people that are maybe feeling a little stuck on the inventory process or haven't embraced the inventory feature within SalonScale yet, this is a big game changer. Once that's in place, it's so easy to always have the color that you need on stock, always have what you need ready to go, and never have to get into that myth challenge of how do I create this, random red shade that I don't have in stock and I need for the client who's sitting in my chair. So that salon math myth, again, is a really big one. So in the concept of being able to kind of really talk through all the different ways that we see these salon math myths in the beauty industry, it's really eye-opening for me as a coach. There's so many things that come up for newer artists, newer salon owners, as they're working on figuring out what's going to make the most sense for their business, as they're continuing to evolve some of these myths that they've heard and seeing exactly what's happening in their space. So this is where that eyeballing inventory is just a bit of a risk. The inaccuracies are there. The product usage can really get a little bit disheveled. And so when it comes back to then our data, our pricing, it's really important for us to recognize that if we don't have a clear understanding of our inventory on a regular basis, day in and day out of our business, then when it comes to some of that data for accounting, for price increases, for giving ourselves a raise, we don't have accuracy, right? So we're taking our best guess a lot of times. And those best guesses are what really add up. We had another Tips and SalonScale topic not too long ago on the impact of $1. So we really started to break down $1 for one artist, for one service, times a team of 5, times 5 days in a week, over a 30-day period. Then we're looking at the quarter and the year. It is mind-blowing. Over $7,000 on the low end was calculated just from that $1. So when you really start to think about how this adds up, these salon math myths might seem harmless. They might seem like not too big of a deal here and there. And like I said, even with the formulation, a little of this and a little of that, in a one-off here and there situation, of course, totally understandable. But when that becomes our business practices, when that becomes how we run our business behind the chair, that's where things really get messy. That's where we really have a hard time streamlining and understanding the data and getting to the facts of math. So then the last one I want to kind of circle back on, this is another pricing one. This is the pricing conflict of emotional discounting and pricing not having to be too concise. This is something that I've really honed in on with some of my one-on-one coaching clients. So this salon math myth being this third one, the pricing inconsistency or emotional pricing. So your client comes in and sits down, they just were laid off, they have so much going on with their family, they're overwhelmed, they really want to get their hair done and they love everything that you do, but they just cannot afford it. I have seen so many stylists get into this pattern of, okay, well, this is my favorite style. This is my favorite client, or this is such a great client. I'm going to do this and that and this. And what we want to really encourage is when someone shares any sort of financial challenges, especially right now, right? We're all in sort of an interesting economic time. We don't all know what's going to happen. Things are kind of shaken out differently. And so this year, especially, this might be relevant, right? This might be present in your space. So when a client sits down and has this concern, what do we do? How can we address this without emotionally discounting or changing our pricing methods that we're really trying to hone in on and perfect? So my suggestion is always to kind of come back to the goal of the client. So if the client is sitting in your chair, having this experience, but really needs to have their grays covered, let's say it's a single process touch up, and normally you do maybe some balayage, a little bit of painting throughout, and a gloss to make sure everything's just refreshed and good to go. So this client sits down, this scenario has been presented, really strapped on cash, didn't want to cancel the appointment. What can you do? Instead of moving right into discounting, ask your client specifically, what's your budget for today? Ask, what does that look like? What is your budget for today? And when you ask that question, you're opening up the dialogue without your own input of what the budget should be or what you can discount or change. So once your client gives you that price, whatever that looks like, that then can help you articulate and determine what's going to be the most beneficial. What can you do with that price point? And then that allows you to really hone in on the services that you had scheduled and adjust those services to meet the budget needs of the client. So that could look like maybe you're doing a mohawk root touch up, right? Maybe you're just worried about the face frame, the area of the front that needs to be reshaped or taken care of because this client is moving into interviewing or moving into trying to find a new opportunity with her or her career, her job. So in that process, the most important thing that we really encourage is that communication with the client. So we don't want to just go into that right away thinking, okay, oh no, this client is not able to afford things. Okay, I can probably, this is going to cover the cost of that. I'll do this and then I can discount this. Next time she'll probably, you know, tip me better or whatever. This kind of like, I'll cover this cost based off of this. That salon math myth is just really challenging, that pricing based off of sort of emotional in the moment decisions. So being able to go back to your client after you have a really great plan and show, okay, this is what we had scheduled for today. What if we do this, this, and this? That will fit within your budget based on our parts plus service pricing. I'm pretty sure our service pricing will be about this based on my time, and our parts will be determined based on SalonScale. So we're going to be able to really keep you within that X dollar budget today, and we'll be able to create a plan so that the next time you come in, when you're in a better space, whatever that looks like, we can kind of keep moving towards that end goal that we've been talking towards or we've been working towards in our previous appointments. So that process too is a really important one. The reason that that one's really important is because you're earning the client's trust. So when you have someone sit down like that, that's a vulnerable conversation. Yeah, I know for me, I've lost jobs, I've lost opportunities, I've reduced my budget for some of my own personal care things in many times in my life. And so when that conversation comes up, we want to hold that space with that client. We really want to nurture that client and not give them any sort of indication or any sort of uncomfortability for that discussion. And instead, if we can really show them that we can meet them where they're at and still provide them with the quality of service that we would provide at the budget that they had initially been scheduled for, we're earning their trust for future visits. They're not going to then go home, grab a box color at the store and try to create their own solution and a bigger problem, bigger mess for you down the road. So in that process, our client is our end goal, right? We want to really make sure we're nurturing and taking care of our client. And that's where these salon math myths can really be murky. If we're losing the value we're providing, ultimately our business will struggle. Ultimately, we will start to lose clients and we will have a hard time attracting new clients to come and fill those spaces. So these salon math myths are fun and a cute topic to kind of hone in on, but they're really important to adjust and change and shift. So as we keep working towards our parts plus service model, we can start to eliminate some of these math myths that don't have any basis in this industry. So with that, I'd like to kind of talk through what do we do, right? What are the actions? So we've got these 3 salon math myths. Let's go back to that first one. So when we're looking at the entire concept of basing our pricing on all of our neighbors, what is an alternative solution? What is something else that we can do? So when we're doing that data, and I'm not discouraging that at all, if you want to take a peek and kind of just get an idea around your area of what's going on, there's some insight that could be valuable, especially if you're relocating to a new area. If you were building a business or had a business in a big city, and now this is for me an example, now I live in Metro Detroit, I lived prior in Chicago, the pricing that I had structured in Chicago with my clients behind the chair is much higher than any pricing I've seen here in Metro Detroit. And so in that concept, if I were to just search my neighbors here, I would realize that my pricing, what I was used to in Chicago, would probably have a different pain point here in this area. I'd have some different obstacles to kind of work through. However, that could also give me some great insight on that piece of awareness. If I didn't do any of that search, if I didn't do any kind of understanding of my area, and I just came in hard with my prices, this is exactly what it is, I might be sitting slow for a while. Yeah, it might be a little hard to get some of that business to come in. And so having that awareness is important. Now, does that mean that I should reduce my pricing and meet my area? Not necessarily. And so that's also where I want to kind of hold some tension to. Every situation is different. And my understanding of really looking at supply and demand would help me then determine, do I want to maintain my price point in this different area and wait for my ideal clients and then change my marketing direction, change some of my strategy for bringing those clients in? Or do I want to adjust my pricing to start building some clientele here, and then slowly increase to the price points that I'm used to? There's not a right or wrong when it comes to this. And we really want to kind of hone in on that as well. There's just discussions that need to be had. And those discussions and those determination factors need to come from data, not from emotions, not from thoughts, not from other people's opinions in your space. So that first one, do your research if it feels applicable, but then come back down to the place of supply and demand. So what does your supply and demand look like today in the space that you're in? And then also the data behind where your profit lives. So what will it cost you to provide the services that you're providing? And then where do your profit margins need to be for your business to be able to continue to grow? That data is how we determine the pricing. So that's that first salon math myth. So that one, again, as we're kind of looking through, bringing this to our team, talking to younger stylists in this discussion, if you hear that myth come up, I really encourage you to debunk that one, kind of give some feedback around some suggestions, some other ways that somebody could start to structure their pricing. So then that second one, that formulations, right? That a little of this and a little of that. And I'm just going to create my own little concoction for every single client because I don't have time to run to the store and I'm overwhelmed by inventory. So that salon math myth is a really easy one to bust with SalonScale, as you all know. Getting inventory set up can feel a little overwhelming at the onset, but once you have that all backloaded, you have everything understood within your business, you will not have that pain point of figuring out every week, oh no, who's here? What do I have to find? I have to run to the store. I didn't order this. That problem costs us a lot of time, number one. It costs us money, number two, because sometimes in that situation, when we're doing a little of this and a little of that, we then have an open color tube that we maybe never needed to use in the first place. So if we're doing a little of a, again, 5VR, but then we're not going to use that 5VR again for however long, now we've got that open product that's sitting there and could at some point not be as quality as what we need. So that process is just not the way that we would suggest any colorist approaches formulation. So with SalonScale, the solution obviously is to get your back end inventory all taken care of, get your inventory situated, and that way you're out of that pain point. You have everything ordered as it's needed. It's triggered when it's below your stock number. And then as soon as you place that order, it's restocked in and your books are secure. You know exactly who's coming in, you know who uses what, formulations are saved, and it's really simple. So that salon math myth, again, that's a debunker. If you see that happening in your salon, nip that in the butt. That's not something that you want to have a pattern built around. And so bringing that back to younger stylists, younger colorists, and really encouraging them to have the proper supplies that they need so that they're not getting into that pattern as an artist. So that one's an easy one to debunk. And then this last one, again, like I said, having that piece of really understanding from the perspective of data. So moving away from just emotional pricing and it not having to be that precise, the financial repercussions of not accurately pricing your salon services are big. It's the long game. It's the long-term decision-making that will catch up with you at some point. So with SalonScale, being able to implement that data, being able to take all of our information and then price ourselves accordingly, and also increase pricing as needed and when appropriate. That also comes from the data. That also comes from understanding where we've got maybe a few little dips, what services are costing us money, what services we're not making as much of our profit margins on as we need to. How do we start to adjust those services and reduce some of them so that we're moving into more of a space of profit-based services? So I'm going to pause there. I would love to open it up for all of you who are here with us live. I'd love to open this one up for questions. If you'd like to either unmute, raise your hand, or drop a question in the chat. I'm going to pause for a second, but I would love to hear from you. If any of this resonated, if anything is kind of top of mind based off of this, anything that popped into your head idea-wise, I'd love to keep it open. I'm going to pause because I think maybe somebody is typing. So I'm just going to let that sit for a second. Yeah. Beta inventory is still in beta. So yes, however, it's fully functional. So it is beta inventory for now. If you need support with inventory, I'm going to, of course, like always, drop my links in just a second so that we can connect you with CS. I would love to connect with you personally myself. But in the process of getting inventory all figured out, all finished, it is still in beta. It will probably be in beta a bit longer. However, it is effectively working. It is working very well for our active users. And so we can support you with that if you need any help getting that set up. Erin, question for you. You can just give me a nod yes or a nod no. Are you actively set up with inventory yet? Awesome. Okay, yeah, let's connect. So I'm going to drop both of these in the chat. So these are the links that I'd love to share every week. So I'm just going to put these here. As you know, some of you who have not been here prior, this is your first time. The biggest thing that we really want to encourage you to do is connect with our CS team. So Amy is phenomenal. If you haven't talked to Amy, Jordan is phenomenal with the technical issues. If you're ever having any glitches with that, both of them are so great. So these here, I'm going to put these bullet points in. Okay, so connect with customer support. You'll see that link. You can book a call with me. You'll see that link. And then all future dates for Sips and SalonScale, that third link. So like I said, these are every Tuesday at 11 a.m. We host these every week. We brought on the first Tuesday, I facilitated for a 1-hour special event talking about working with aligned brands. Prior to that, we had Kaylee Auger come on. She's one of our salon mentors for a full hour. And so as we continue to once a month introduce some new business related topics, we would love to have feedback from you on what you would like us to have and present in this space. So any questions, any topics, any things that are top of mind, this can be specific to SalonScale for these sessions, our half-an-hour appointments every Tuesday, or our business topics, our bigger discussions, our 1-hour events once a month, open to all active users as well as guests. So any of that feedback would be so helpful for us as we continue to develop this format. And then I also put my calendar link there. I would love to connect with all of you for 30 minutes or so and just get to know you as an active user within SalonScale, get to know your business and see how we can further support you to scale and hit more profit this year. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all, everyone, for joining us live who is here. This will go out with the replay tomorrow. So if you want to kind of go back in, we also have the library of all prior Sips and SalonScale webinars. So when you see that replay, go in and take a peek at that library and take a look at some of our prior topics. I hope you all have a phenomenal week. Thank you, Erin, for being here again this week. And I will see you all hopefully next Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern for Sips and SalonScale. Take care.